The following episode is a replay of an extraordinary interview which homeopath Ambika Wauters did with South African homeopath David Lilley. I first heard about this interview when I was listening to Ambika's own podcast called Unscheduled Flights. She has several fascinating episodes which you can listen to on any podcasting platform as well as on YouTube. Just search for Unscheduled Flights with Ambika Wauters wherever you listen to podcasts. I reached out to Ambika and asked if I could share this interview she did with David on the Homeopathy Hangout. Ambika and David both graciously agreed, so it's with great delight that I'm sharing this with you today. Just a quick note as well that you can purchase Ambika's range of books, art, and courses at her website, lifeenergymedicine.com. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, and welcome to Unscheduled Flights, exploring the realms of inspiration, innovation, and creativity. I'm your host, Ambika Wauters, and I welcome you to this podcast and hope you find it as interesting as I do.
It's my pleasure.
Okay. It's my pleasure too.
By the way, let me start off by saying Paddy sends her love.
Oh, thank you. And mine to hers. I wish she was doing that wonderful diary. Remember that beautiful Hahnemann diary?
That's right, the Hahnemannian diary.
Beautiful.
I think that was 2003 or 2004 or somewhere around there.
Yeah,
that
it was
she
beautiful.
did that work. Yes.
So you and your family are in Cape Town, not Cape Town, in the Cape Province, correct?
We're now in Somerset West, which is about 30 kilometers away from Cape Town. Looking out of this window, I can see in the distance, if it was not a cloudy day, I would see Table Mountain.
Wonderful.
And the intervening landscape is just beautifully green, trees, etc. So I'm out in the country, very close to the vineyards.
Beautiful. I have to tell you a secret. I am a great, great admirer of Wilbur Smith and have read everything he ever wrote. I have a milk carton full of his
an
books.
entire library of his.
I loved his work.
Yeah.
He's one of the best writers I've ever come across. I lived in Africa for 7 years. I was in Lubumbashi, Zaire for 7 years, and I came across his books. Very hard to get anything in English. And I found one or two of his books and it just fired in my mind. And back in America, I've had all of his books and I love reading about Africa. I love it.
Well, it conveys some of the magic of Africa to you as well. Despite our problems here, it's a lovely country to be living in. And I've been out here since I was 9 years of age. We came up to London after the war. And it's been a wonderful life out here, Ambika. Yes.
Good place to raise your family, beautiful country. And I think beautiful people. Beautiful people. It gets very bad press. South Africa has had bad press for so long. And people don't even realize we were fed by you. We were fed. Lubumbashi, we couldn't get washing soap. We couldn't get so many fresh vegetables and fruits and products. We were totally dependent upon the trucks that came up from South Africa and fed us.
Yes, that is true. I remember that time. In fact, probably our first familiarity with South Africa was post-war fruit that was coming in.
Wow, to England.
To England, yes, at that time. My dad's practice was in London, and we immigrated from London to Pretoria. And now, of course, I've come all the way down to the bottom of South Africa, almost to the tip in Cape Town. My son took over my practice when I left in 2007. We closed down the major practice. I didn't close it down, but handed it over to my son, and he took over.
So he's doing
down here now almost 17 years.
Wow. So you've been writing for 17 years nonstop. That's wonderful.
Not really, no. At first it was lecturing and preparing lectures at quite a high level. We were teaching doctors, medical doctors, homeopathy and graduating them. We created the South African Faculty of Homeopathy for that purpose, which was affiliated to the British Faculty of Homeopathy. They enabled us to establish the institute, and I was the dean of that faculty from It was 1994 we started it, launched it until 2012.
Congratulations. That's a huge effort. Huge
That was
effort.
quite a long time, yes. And in fact, I just wish I could put into book form all the lectures that I produced over
Wow.
that period of time. But at 85, time is getting a little short.
Time is of the essence for us. Time is of the essence. And you've really got to do the best you can to get as much out to as many people as you can.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So we'll do as much as we can in the time allotted. And
absolutely.
I'm so excited by the works that I have done. It's been a great pleasure. It's been a joy to me. And talking about youthfulness, well, that rejuvenates, I do think.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely. I feel the same. And I finish a book and I think I'm finished. And then I think, well, this would make the most wonderful book. And I find things from 2016, from 2011, proposals I never developed. I think
there you are.
this would be amazing. So
Yes.
I'm not stopping. I have quit clinical practice.
Well, let me at this moment thank you so much for our initial contact, which came through the color remedies that you
Yes.
kindly sent to Paddy. You
Yes.
having established your common origins in the Congo, or you having been in the Congo, she was born there,
Really,
and yes,
where
she
was she born?
was then what was it called? Leopoldville.
Leopoldville. That was up in the north in what they call Kisangani.
Yes,
Wonderful. Wow. Was her father, was she English?
yes. Her father was a Lancaster a bomber pilot. And
Okay.
after the war, he then went into commercial flying, and he joined Sabina.
Right. The Belgian line.
Yes, the
That's
Belgian
right.
airline. So they were then stationed in Congo, where
Wow.
Patty was born, and she stayed there until she was about, must have been about 12 years of age. And then they went down to Rhodesia, what was Rhodesia at that time, southern Rhodesia, Salisbury, because of all
Salisbury.
the problems that developed in the Congo.
Yep. Harare.
Hmm.
I never
And
got
then
as far
eventually
as
down into
Harare.
South Africa, and now she's gone about as far south as she can.
She's a woman of Africa. That's for sure.
Very
For
much so.
sure.
You're quite right there.
And
Yes. Well, thank you for
that's a
those
whole
initial
different,
remedies, which have
yes.
been so useful.
I met some nuns in Congo who had used homeopathy for 60 years. And when they ran out of pellets, they used talcum powder. I mean, I was amazed. Just these little kits that they'd kept for years and years. That's when
Yes.
it came to homeopathy. I had these dogs that had horrible eczema, just
Yeah.
horrible, horrible eczema. I tried everything as a healer that I knew. And one day I was at the golf course and I was introduced to this young vet who was seconded to the African army, to the Zairian army. And I started talking with him. He said, I'll come over, I'll look at your dogs. And he gave me these three little pellets and he said, 1 week. He said, does your dog pass gas? And I said, he's a boxer. Of course he passes gas. I couldn't comprehend what he was looking for, but I gave him these little pellets. His chest cleared up like a baby's bottom. It was that smooth. His whole
Lovely.
temperament changed. It was Nux Vom 30. Who knew?
Mm.
I
There
said,
we are.
I said, what is this? He said, it's homeopathy. And that was it. That was the beginning. And I never looked back. That was in 85,
Right.
84, 85. It's like magic. It was
Yeah.
like this dog was born with a really dysfunctional liver and he was such a sweetheart, but you couldn't take him near another dog. I was able
Mm.
to breed him and have puppies with him, and I took him to Spain when I left Africa. It was something. It was a revolution in my what could do that because chemicals only made it worse. So yes, here's to Africa, here's to homeopathy. Let's hear about your background and your family. Your tradition of healing goes way
Yes,
back.
quite a remarkable background. In fact, I often think I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth, Ambika. To be born the son of a man such as my father was, both as a healer and as an individual, was a blessing in itself. My history actually extends back into his history, of course. And my first book, Healing the Soul, Volume 1, is split into two. It is the history of Samuel Hahnemann, and the second half is devoted to the history of my father. In fact, this was a strange thing. When I sat down to write the first book, and that was in probably 2011, 2012, a little bit late in anybody's life to start writing. And I thought I was going to write about materia medica. I've been lecturing for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
And the natural thing would be that I'd be writing about the archetypes of the materia medica. It didn't turn out that way. I thought I'll start off with a small history of Hahnemann. And that took me at least 250 to 300 pages. And then I spoke to Stephen and I said, would you mind if I added in a little bit of a story about my father, his beginnings? And he said, certainly we can do it as an addendum, or we can add it in here or there. So I sat down and I started writing about my father, another 250 pages. So I ended up, my first book had nothing to do with remedies as such, but more to do about the philosophy and the origins of homeopathy, Hahnemann's life, magic, and then William Henry's life. Well,
and was he a homeopath? He was a homeopath and osteopath, right?
A professional homeopath. The times were difficult. He was born in 1914, just at the beginning of the First World War. So he went through the Depression in the 30s and then the Second World War. Born in Leeds, a mining town, mining city, and all our family were miners. At 13, you went down the mine.
Yep.
It was an accepted fact. You had to sustain the family, each doing his bit. And he would have gone down if it hadn't been for my grandmother being a clairvoyant, a remarkable clairvoyant who could commune with the spirit and who had a spirit guide, and a Chinese gentleman who told her that this third son of hers, my father was the third, the youngest of three brothers, that he should not go down the mine, that he was destined for great work. And one day she was the center of a seance group, which was particularly strong at that time between the wars.
Yes.
So many people, so many villages, in fact, had lost almost all the menfolk. Hardly a young man left. And so families would get together if they knew of somebody who was fey, who had insights into the spirit world, to make contact with those they'd loved, brothers, fathers, husbands, sons. And it was at that time that she became the center of a group, a spiritualist group. From that, my father's gift developed. He was taken along one day when my grandmother had no babysitter. He was told to sit in a corner and mind his P's and Q's. And they started singing hymns, and they were singing Lead Kindly Light, when suddenly this little boy of 10 stood up, seemed to throw a robe across his shoulder, as one would do in the old Grecian forum or the Senate, and he started to hold forth in a language they had never heard before.
Wow.
Wow. Eyes closed, seemingly asleep, and he addressed them with an imperiousness, with a presence, a dignity that was remarkable for one so young. So they knew they were in the presence of a spirit being. Yes.
Wow.
Later, after he had spoken for some time, and he seemed to be addressing the people who were present, rather than unseen people who were present, rather than the audience who were truly present. And then he directed his gaze at those who were actually sitting around. They were in a circle, all women, all people who had a common aim, and that was to contact those who were deceased, but also to send out healing to the people in the village. My grandmother was really the witch of Woodlesford, and that was the village where she operated from. So she was the one who could read tea leaves, who could read a palm, who prescribed homeopathic remedies and herbal remedies, and who was the unofficial midwife.
Did you know her in the physical life?
She provided me with the background to the book that I've written.
Oh, wonderful,
Yes,
wonderful.
when I was at the Royal London Homeopathic Hospital studying homeopathy, doing my postgraduate, because I did medicine in South Africa before going over to England. Every holiday that I had, I would go up to Woodlesford to be with her and to ask her again, now, Nana, please tell me the story of that
Oh,
seance where my father suddenly was possessed by this spirit being. Mm.
aren't you lucky? Aren't you lucky?
So, right from that
Really?
beginning, that's when it started. My father, the person who spoke was White Hawk. He was obviously an American Indian, Native American, and he told my grandmother that they should have regular sittings, at first in the group, but later at home, to develop my father's gift so that he could seamlessly slip into trance state, full trance mediumship, in which the spirit would enter his body. He would be astrally projected, and the spirit would come into his being and take over and then address people he was speaking to, or they would be speaking to. So, at 14 years of age, the work started, and Dr. Latari came into his life. Dr. Latari was an Indian physician who studied surgery in London, who was present at the time of the riots in Peshawar, in what is now Pakistan, but at that time was still India, near the Khyber Pass. And there were riots against the British rule, shooting going on, and somebody was shot down in the street. He, a doctor, ran into the street to assist and in turn was shot. And over a week, he languished in a coma, semi-coma, and then eventually passed into the next life. Speaking to me many, many years later, when he was teaching me, he said, David, he never called me David, he spoke to me by my spiritual name. He said, never be afraid of death. My first awareness after passing out of the coma into the next life was lying on a grassy bank, surrounded by what seemed to him paradise, the a blissful state of tranquility, serenity, and absolute beauty about him.
Oh,
And then familiar people coming towards him and welcoming him. And he said that was his transition.
I'm so delighted that you share that. That is really beautiful, beautiful.
So when my father was 14, those who had been developing him handed him over to the care of Dr. Latari. Now, Dr. Latari spoke to me with a whimsical look on his face when he said it was quite ironical in a sense that he was approached by elders and asked whether he would be prepared to go down to the earth plane so soon after his own departure. He died in 1914, by the way, a few months after my father was born. My father was born in February of 1914. Dr. Latari died somewhat later in the same year.
Mm.
So he was asked pretty soon after his excarnation whether he would be willing to teach this young boy homeopathy.
Oh, yeah.
India being really the heart of
The
modern
heart of
day
it.
homeopathy in many
Absolutely.
ways.
Yes.
And he thought, because he himself was subject to the prejudices against the British rule and the way in which the Indian people had been exploited and the riches for the country taken back home to Britain.
Right.
And he thought this would be a very good exercise in any case, but he said yes and devoted the rest of my father's life to working with him. So Dad, as a little boy, would be taken out into the hedgerows in the village area and be shown the belladonna, the urtica urens growing there, the pulsatilla,
Yes.
etc. And he would see a blue light playing on the plant, and in his solar plexus, he would hear a voice telling him that is urtica urens. It is good for allergies, urticaria, eczema, itching conditions, etc., etc. So he learnt herbalism. At the same time, very shortly after he began this work, first of all, it was the collecting the herbs, getting familiar with the herbs. He was taught then by spirit how to collect these, to dry them and prepare them to be used as medicines. A close friend of my grandmother, Mrs. Westmoreland, her son developed chronic nephritis, Bright's disease as it was known in those days, with severe edema, anuria, he wasn't passing urine, and the means available to orthodox medicine at that time, even now today, in a person developing chronic nephritis at that age, interstitial nephritis, the chances are very slim. So he was dying. Mrs. Westmoreland, knowing about the seances which had been developing my father's gift, and having met my father and being very much involved in the bringing up of this young boy, but she was always known to me as Mrs. Westmoreland. I can't give you her first name. She was held with some respect by the mining villagers. She approached my grandmother and asked, "Do you think that the spirit would work through your son to help my son in this extreme condition where his life was threatened?" And Nana had no doubt about it and went along and took little Billy Lilley, originally Willie Lilley when he was at school, then Billy Lilley, and eventually Bill. My father was known to my mother and to all friends as Bill Lilley, although I write of him in my book as William Lilley. He went and he passed into a trance state in the room beside the young boy who was dying, literally. And then he gave him physical healing, laying on of hands, as it is known. And in association with that, suggested certain herbal remedies. The treatment extended over approximately, I think, 20 minutes to 30 minutes of direct hands-on treatment from this young boy who was no more than 15 at the time. That young boy started to urinate within 3 to 4 days. The edema started to diminish. The albumin disappeared from the urine, and the symptoms of nephritis gradually diminished. Now, in village life, everybody knows everybody else. Yeah. And in fact, one village knows pretty well the doings of the next village and the next village and the next village. You can imagine how this spread like wildfire to all the villages outside of Leeds being the centre, the main city of Yorkshire, you may know. Well, that started the whole process. From there, more and more patients coming to him, eventually donations being given to him to assist him. From that, buying Kent's Materia Medica. And
wonderful.
And of course our friend here, Borica.
Good old Borica.
Yes. And then Clark's Materia Medica in the 3 volumes, which, believe me, Ambika, he devoured. We still have his 3 original copies. Almost every page is annotated, underlined, emphases, colored in. He read every page of those 3 books. So he devoted himself to homeopathic study over this period of years. Instead of going down the mines, he got a job at a general dealer and made sufficient money to be a functioning part of the family. And then gradually, of course, this took over, became more and more well-known until sponsors heard about it. A very wealthy manufacturer in Leeds, manufacturing piston rings, which was going to be of critical importance to the war which was brewing, because changes in Europe were obvious at that time. And he then took my father in hand. My father proved to him his ability to diagnose. He could diagnose through psychometry. If you gave him a comb or gave him a handkerchief or some close article of your possession, he would hold it. He would then pick up the vibrations from it, and he would be able to make a diagnosis on that basis. All of this I've related in the first volume of Healing the Soul. So when I was born in 1940, we moved to London by 1943, when I was 3 years of age. My first memory of life, Ambika, is hearing the air raid sirens, hearing the sound of the V-2 rockets, we called them doodlebugs, coming overhead, and waiting for the engine to cut out, because I knew then I would hear the whistling as it fell, plummeted down to earth, and then that would be followed by the bomb, the explosion. My first memory, Grandma, Nana over to my mother's mother, pushing me under the bed because we didn't want to go to the air raid shelters, which were dank and horrible. So we would hide under the beds. So those are my first memories. So 1943. I was born into a family with two fathers. My father, William, Bill, and Dr. Latari. And I can recall he opened a nursing home in Bulstrode Street. And if you check Bulstrode Street, you'll see it's in an area very close to Harley Street, Wimpole Street, the heart of medical territory.
Right.
Yes, at that time, enemy territory, because you can imagine what the viewpoint of the orthodoxy would be to not only a homeopath, but a spiritualist homeopath.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine. Even in today's world, they would find a way.
They would find that a little unusual, paradoxical.
So Dr.
Anyway,
Latari,
I was fortunate to be born into this family where I had this wonderful Brahmin Indian teacher and my father. So
and
I was
your grandmother.
From this side, reading Kent and Tyler and Farrington and Clark and Allen and Nash, etc., and then receiving tuition from the other side of the divide.
Right.
The spirit world. And I remember at 4 years of age, a happening like that, of course, stands out in one's memory, even so remotely. Sitting on Dr. Tari's lap, and he telling me at that early stage that you're going to be a doctor one day, and I'm going to be telling you so many wonderful things.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Did he train your son?
No, my father died when he was 58 years of age. Dr. Latari, my father died at 58, in which case, as much as I was born into a family with two fathers, when my father died, I lost, for me, in the physical sense, two fathers.
Oh.
But of course, with all the training and the understanding that there is no such thing as death,
right.
It wasn't quite as painful as it might well have been otherwise.
So your father and Dr. Latari guided you into your development. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct. That's correct. Up until I was 32 when he died. So I lost at that time my best friend, my mentor, my second opinion, my tutor in every possible way, and a person who was a tremendous example to me of how life should be lived.
Yes.
A beautiful man.
Sounds like it. The whole story that you're imparting. I have to share one thing with you. The first time I heard your voice, I had studied for 10 years in the UK. I qualified with the society as a practitioner. I began writing, I got published there, and then I moved back to America after 10 years in the UK. And I still had contacts with good friends, and I always asked, what's new in homeopathy? Because this is not a country that's well connected homeopathically.
Yes.
She said, oh, you have to hear David Lilley. I said, could you send me something? And those were the days of cassettes. So she sent me she sent me one cassette, because then I ordered from you directly. So I'm sitting by the fire one winter's day in California, where it does get cold occasionally, and I'm knitting away and I'm listening to you, and all of a sudden you start talking about archetypes, and I threw the knitting up in the air. I stood up and I went, yes, yes, because I'd never heard anybody in my whole training and postgraduate training who even touched on archetypes, who even touched on the realm of spirit. It was taboo. It was just not done. And if you don't if you don't embrace that, there'll never be healing. There's just patchwork, what I call patchwork. You know, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage. It was the first time I ever heard anybody talk about spirit, talk about metaphor, talk about archetypes. And it changed my life to know you were on the planet and that I wasn't alone with what I knew in myself from enough practice.
Yes.
That if you didn't treat the spirit, you were not going to treat the person, and nothing would really resolve itself. It was, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. But I was really quite isolated with the homeopathic community, because if I'd had the wherewithal, I would have brought you to America. That's what I wanted to do, is to, I wanted
Well,
people
that's
to hear.
wonderful for me to hear. Wonderful for me to hear.
I started a school in Chicago, and then I
Yes.
eventually brought it to where I live here in Tucson, and we listened to your tapes. That was the requirement. By then I think I had 2 or 3 volumes of the cassettes, and everybody had to listen. Everybody, they couldn't go to the next level unless they'd heard your tapes. So it was, I want you to know that. It was called the School of Spiritual Homeopathy.
Yes. Well, it's wonderful that they've been propagated, as it were.
Well, and
That is
they
lovely.
listened, nobody resisted. You know how they say, oh, you have to read this book and you have to read that. And nobody
Yes.
reads it. Everybody heard your tapes, and it changed the way we were able to work. It opened a channel for all of us to
Yes.
rely on our intuition, to look deeper, to dig deeper, to find a remedy that matched the spirit as well as physical symptoms. It became, honestly, teaching became a great source of joy for me because we had you on the faculty, whether you know it or not. So I can't
Yeah.
thank you enough for that. You open doors.
Well, right from the start, of course, with that sort of background, I
Yeah.
was introduced to the purpose of life, why we're here in the first place.
Mm,
And certainly when a person comes to you with eczema or
mm,
migraine or asthma, that is the synchronistic happening that brings you together.
yes,
I do believe it's said that when the disciple is ready, the master appears.
yes,
I would invert that and say that when the doctor's ready, the patient appears.
yes, that too.
How often is it that one studies pulsatilla or you study lachesis over the weekend and on the Monday?
Yeah,
Sure, you can be certain that new patient that you see
absolutely.
is a pulsatilla and a lachesis.
Yeah,
Yes. A cynical person might just say, well, you've just learnt it, that's why you could recognize it. But when it happens time and time again, you
yes,
realize that there are threads that are being brought together and
yes.
the cosmos knows that you're functioning, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and has a patient that needs your assistance and brings the two together when the time is right.
I was taught in threes. So I would be, a remedy would present itself. The Monday morning, it would show up in the clinic and I'd recognize it. The second one would come maybe a week later, same remedy. And I'd go, oh, and by the third one, I had it. And then
Mm,
it would just, I was always taught in these three cases of the same remedy. And then, but it would happen. It was nothing planned. It was not organized. It would just show up and it'd go. And then I could really get some mastery. And that's how excuse me, it's how I learned. And I really felt I was guided, really, truly guided. It came into my life in my 40s, and I was mature enough, not very mature, but mature enough
mm,
to go with it.
yeah.
And I did it by the book for years.
Mm,
I was trained by the British, and I did what I was told and I never questioned it. And when I got back to America, I started thinking, maybe there's more to this than this narrow, narrow band of fundamentalism. That's what I call it. But it's fundamentalist thinking. And then I started to listen to my intuition. And the very first case was, if it's a challenging case, and I heard this little voice say, "This is syphilinum, take a look." And I remember going, "This is syphilinum." And I heard, "Give this woman syphilinum." And I thought, and I don't argue with spirit. I gave her syphilinum and everything cleared up. Everything cleared. And I was stunned, but it was the opening for me to just really listen and to train students when they came to listen, because you're never going to get it if you really think you know it. You're never going to get it. It's that listening that we are so guided. We have such great homeopaths in the spirit realm. And more now, so many men passed away in the past, season of COVID. The Brits, particularly Robin Murphy, Misha Noland, my great clinical tutor, Ian Watson, Ernest Roberts, Adam Martenda. A lot of these men just passed away, and the women started coming to the forefront. And they're very different because they practice without fear. A little too cavalier sometimes for me, but they don't have the fear element that I had to do it like I was told.
Yes.
So you're down there in South Africa with all this spiritual guidance and love and blessing. How did you find it when you went to Britain? What was your take on classical homeopathy? Although I know you're a doctor and you worked with the faculty, that too is different.
Absolutely. I was very fortunate when I went over. I qualified in medicine in 1962, which is now 63 years ago.
Wow.
And I went to the Royal Homeopathic Hospital at a time when Marjorie Blackie was the dean.
Oh, yay.
Yes.
Yay.
Dr. Twentyman was a very wonderful influence at the time.
You knew him as well. Oh,
interest in anthroposophy.
Yeah.
And for me, his interest in Greek mythology, which we shared. His art and cure by homeopathy is largely a lot of mythological teachings from the Greek myths, which he then relates to the homeopathic remedies, which I do in my lecturing, as you know.
Yes. I loved reading his book.
He was a good influence on John Rayside, who died in the Trident tragedy. He was a young homeopath at the time who introduced me to the doctrine of signatures at faculty level. Now, of course, Dr. Tari had already been teaching me this, but to find a faculty member who was very much inclined to examine a plant, an animal, a mineral from that point of view was wonderful. It was a wonderful and exciting experience. I remember the actual one that he spoke to me about first was sepia, and how he likened it, the tentacles to the fallopian tubes and the fimbriae, and the body of the sepia like the uterus. And this really appealed to this young doctor that I was at the time. Then there was the wonderful Donald Fubister.
Yes.
He was the gentleman who was absolutely, almost obsessed, you could say, with carcinosin.
Absolutely.
And developing the carcinosin picture.
Wasn't he a giant?
I sat in with him at outpatients over a period of almost 2 years.
Wow,
Learning
David.
from him.
Extraordinary.
A more man you cannot imagine, Ambika. So my impressions, particularly not then homeopathy as such, but the individuals that I came in contact with.
Really?
Yes.
20 Fubister, these extraordinary people.
Yes.
The gods. They were the gods.
Prieston as well, who was a wonderful pediatrician. So it was altogether a wonderful experience, uplifting.
Did they know about your psychic connection? No, you kept that to yourself.
Yes. In fact, the first time I spoke of it generally was when I started writing.
Wow.
Yes. My patients did not know about it.
Right. Good for you.
No, it was only when I decided, and as I said, I was thinking that I was going to be writing a materia medica,
Right.
archetypal materia medica, certainly, but a materia medica based on those teachings that I gave in Glasgow and in London, which formed the basis for those cassettes that you had, which are now, of course, available as electronics lectures. And it didn't happen that way. And then I thought, well, with the second Healing the Soul, volume two, this will most certainly materialize. No, I
Oh,
had to speak about the psyche. I had to speak about the archetype in general. And what I did there, I started with graphites and I approached graphites from the doctrine of signatures point of view and developed the entire picture from that viewpoint, from that perception. And then I moved on to silica and found myself with Sir Isaac Newton.
yes. I love your
So I
silica.
developed it then from what I would term personality profiling, where a person is so archetypally one with the remedy that you
Yes.
can regard the person as approving of the remedy in totality.
Wow.
I found the same with Edgar Allan Poe with The Raven. Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, The Raven, started me off. And from that, of course, the whole book emerged from that.
Wow.
Although it eventually ended up at the end of the book. In fact, the whole Raven was stimulated and promoted by my having written The Wolf first and then moving on to The Raven and then discovering Edgar Allan Poe.
I remember Edgar Allan Poe, but I remember silica like it was yesterday. I remember it because it changed the way I looked at silica. And I mean, even today, when I prescribe silica, I'm going from that lecture of yours. That was revelation. That lecture on silica was like, wow, that was not what I was taught. And I
Mm,
would listen to it. I would put it on in my office and I would listen to it 2, 3 times. It was revolutionary, and I can't even tell you why, but it went in and it stuck. It's engrafted in here.
mm.
Wow, David, what I
That is the beauty of the doctrine of signatures. When you've entered into it, it is a wonderful way in which to remember the remedies. You
oh,
can't
absolutely.
forget, if you're thinking of gold and the radiance of gold,
Yeah,
then turn off all the lights and go over to an ingot of gold. It's hard, it's cold,
that's
it's
right.
heavy, ponderously heavy. Well,
Very heavy.
you've got the duality of the remedy immediately. It's on the side, one side light, radiant, uplifting, oh, beautiful. And on the other, heavy, morbid, depressed. You can never forget those. And that's a very simple example.
I just had a thought that you may have had to have kept your psychic gifts, your spiritual gifts under wraps until you were retired and felt safe, because they would have cut you to pieces had you shared that part of your knowing. I think about the meditation proving remedies that Madeline Evans did up
Hmm.
in Leeds, as a matter of fact. I was on
Yeah.
the other side of the Pennines in the lakes and in Derbyshire for 10 years, working on the color remedies, and she was in Leeds and she was working with the I think there were I'm not sure. I believe there were 20 of the homeopaths under lock and key, and they would do these meditative provings in the 90s. They did not want to be known in the homeopathic community. They would have been laughed at.
Hmm.
They laughed at the color remedies for a long time. They couldn't believe it. I had one case of a woman, she was a student with me. I gave her turquoise and she started to sneeze, and the snot was blue green. And she showed me the handkerchief, and I said, oh my God. I took it to one of my teachers, and she said, so what? So what? They were not going to let me have it until I graduated. That was for sure. And then it took years. It's 35 years since I developed the color remedies.
Yes, long time.
Long time. And all of a sudden, at the end of my life, at the end of my career, all these youngins want to know about it. I just gotta a young homeopath in Britain just sent me her thesis. It's absolutely beautiful on color healing and the color remedies and Madeline Evans' color remedies and my color remedies. The end of my life, the end of my working life for sure. It's like, did it take that long? And I thought, the world was not quite ready. They weren't quite ready to accept the psychic spiritual part. And now you're writing about it and talking about it. It's a time. It's time for this to be known, because if people don't develop this tool, this inner knowing, this inner grace of connecting with the spirit realm, they're going to be very lonely and they're going to miss so much. They're going to miss an awful lot, because it is not rote, it is not mechanical, it is not AI. It is really working with the depth of our spirit to connect and to take that into the healing realm for people. They need it more than ever. They need it more than ever. Keep going, David. I think we can maybe make 2 or 3. This will be cut out of but either
Yes.
keep going or we set up another time and
Well,
we
this leads to the concept of depth homeopathy.
depth homeopathy. Yes,
Homeopathy is practiced at different levels by different practitioners, and that is fine.
yes, it
It's
is.
to be expected because the disposition, the temperament, and the inclination, we're all different. And
Yes.
some will practice clinical homeopathy very proficiently. And so many people are led into homeopathy by having success at the acute level.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
the allium cepa and arsenicum alb has helped for their cold, that the pyrogen and the gels and the baptisia has cleared up their flu like they've never had it cleared before, that the pulsatilla and the ferrum phos have helped their child's ears, and that this is the first year. Isn't it wonderful to hear it? Doctor, this is the first year my child has not needed an antibiotic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that
I
is
agree.
yes, that is a huge achievement. So
Yes, it
that form of homeopathy is cutting edge. It's absolutely essential. We need to be athletic as far as our clinical prescribing is concerned. Quite a different world, really. At the height of my practice, and I carried this through right until my last morning in practice. My last morning in practice, I arrived at 7 o'clock. And I stopped at 1 o'clock and I had seen 20 patients.
God.
Now, that was
Ooh,
over 40. The least number of patients I ever saw was 12 patients on the very first day of my practice, because I walked into a practice already made famous by my father.
right.
He literally, Ambika, he set me up for he arranged my arrival at the faculty, the British faculty. He arranged my interview at the Osteopathic College in London to become an osteopath. He introduced me to Dudley Everett at Nelson's Pharmacy, where we got our medicines originally. When I arrived back from England to South Africa, he had already got my rooms arranged. He had it set up with my examination couch, my chiropractic couch.
Wow.
Everything that I required was there.
Wow.
I stayed with my parents for the first 8 or 9 months of my practice. When I left to get married, my mother handed me the rental that I'd paid for those first months with them and said,
Oh,
"That is towards your future, my son." They were a springboard to everything that I've been able to achieve. A remarkable upbringing, a remarkable parents who made it all possible.
I'm sure you passed it on as a father. I'm sure your children would say the same about you.
Well, I'm fortunate that my sons followed my practice, and my niece, my sister's eldest daughter, also a professional homeopath, and she and Dorian, my son, went into practice together. So the practice that my father established in Pretoria in 1949 still exists today, 75 years later, unbroken practice of homeopathy.
What is the name of the practice? Because I'm having lunch with 2 people from Pretoria on Saturday, and they want to know
Well,
what's the
of course,
practice.
they've both got websites. So you'd have Dorian Lilley, that's my son, and my niece is Tanya Blake, Tania Blake, Blake, both in Pretoria.
That's interesting. These lovely people I've become acquainted with are from
Yeah.
Pretoria. We get together and share a meal every
And they now are both in their 50s. So they're
50.
both experienced practitioners.
That's fantastic. I will pass that along. That's
Right.
lovely. So we're
So
talking now fourth
what I was
generation.
speaking about the numbers over that period of 40 years, 41 years to be exact, in heavy practice, I saw on average between 28 and 35 patients a day.
Wow.
Now, how does one do that and practice in-depth homeopathy?
Well,
I, it was remarkable. I was told by many, many people that they never found that they or felt as if they were hurried or rushed, that one can take time and space and bend it and change it. Time is relative. It
very
is
well.
amazing what can
That's
happen.
right. And when you see, you see. It's out of
Yeah.
time. It's out of time.
And what I found of immense help was the use of a questionnaire.
Yeah, me too.
So that all new patients would receive a questionnaire, which they would send to me in full. And, you know, if a lachesis patient was giving me a case history and I'd set no restrictions on it, I could get 30 to 40, 50
I
in the
know. I
originally handwritten notes that I
I
had to.
know. I know. But yes,
But
I
it was
used
a pleasure. So this was done in
yes,
the evening at night, so that when I saw that first patient, now first patients would be given half an hour. But it was far more than that because I had then the questionnaire response, which
yeah,
asked all the relevant questions that I needed to know about,
yeah,
particularly investigative regarding the emotional background, life
mhm,
experience, situations, events in their life, things that had disturbed them and were still distressing them. I was ready for them when they came,
yeah.
which
I
made it
did
all
the
possible.
same. I had the same. I had a very lengthy questionnaire, and I could prescribe from the questionnaire. I mean, I had
Exactly.
enough information. It was just getting to
Yes.
know people and letting them be comfortable with me and the process. The questionnaire was truly invaluable.
Yes. And so many patients told me subsequently, Ambika, that just the writing down the answer,
Yeah,
getting that information over to me, it
yeah,
was a healing experience even before they started treatment,
yeah.
which is fascinating. Yes.
I had people crying, saying nobody ever listened to me for any length of time. It was like
Mm,
that was incredible. I would give them 2 hours for the first session, and then after that, a lot less. But
mm.
sometimes it took that long for people to get over the superficial stuff, or they'd want to give you the test results, like, I can't
Yeah.
read test results. I am a practitioner, I am not a doctor. And I didn't push that, but I would listen and listen. And my prescribing became effortless as a result of the questionnaire. I had it in front of me, and
Makes it very much easier. It
huge.
expedites the whole process.
It
Now,
does.
fortunately, this is my consulting room as well behind me. I can at least devote an hour to every patient that I see, regardless of first, second, or third visit.
So you're still practicing.
Oh yes, indeed.
Good.
Minimally, you know, I see maybe one or two patients a day, but that, you know, it adds up and that keeps me busy. But primarily, it's writing that is my process now.
Yeah.
And then, of course, family life, which is wonderful.
Have you grandchildren?
I have, yes, four, and I think we might be expecting another, I believe,
Good for
shortly.
you. And do you
Yes,
think this is good? This wonderful thread of continuity will continue to the
I
grand?
doubt it. I doubt it very much.
Really?
Really, yes, I doubt very much. The children, none of my grandchildren have shown any interest, really.
Is Dr. Latari still with you?
Yes, yes, but not in the same way as with my father. In other words, my father was clairaudient, clairvoyant when he was younger.
Hmm?
Eventually, that energy was pooled in his psychometry, his psychometric awareness, and also his clairaudience. Every Thursday, Ambika, I would go round to my folks after I was married. I would go round to my family, and we would have supper, and then Dad and I would go into the study, and he would go into trance, and I would spend an hour or two with Dr. Latari.
Oh, wonderful.
A wonderful rocking chair that we had. He would always sit in the rocking chair, and it was there that he would pass into trance. So he would sit with his eyes closed, my father, still my father, and then I would see a transformation take place. The face would change, the expression changed. The language, of course, a very gentle Indian accent, not like the typical Peter Sellers type of Indian accent, as you know, possibly, which was always so funny to hear. A gentle Indian accent. My father's Yorkshire accent completely fading away into the distance. Terminology, the use of words, more poetic than we would use in normal language, consistently so, and such a high level. And he would always start by saying greetings and then my spiritual name, greetings. He never ever spoke of me as David, ever, in all the time I knew him. And when he left, he would give a short Sanskrit prayer, and that would be followed by the words, I will now bring my mediator back. My father would have no memory of what transpired in that hour or two that I spent with Dr. Tari. He would be eager to know what we'd talked about when he came back, and we would have a cup of tea in the kitchen afterwards and chat about it.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's extraordinary.
Yes, as natural as our talking together now.
When I started to read Compton Burnett, I was entranced by his gift. Extraordinary man, extraordinary. And I started asking him in prayer, can you guide me? Can you guide me with this difficult case? Can you guide me with that? And then when Robin Murphy passed, and I had met him once, he came to town here, and one of my patients' father had gifted Robin Murphy his very first computer when he was a young man. So yes. Robin came to have lunch with this client of mine, and they invited me to lunch, and it was just an honor to meet an extraordinary man who spent 10 years writing his Materia Medica and his repertory. But when he passed, I found myself asking Robin, can you help me with this case that I can't see?
Work your way through.
I can't see my way through. And Compton Burnett more than once, let me tell you. I suppose I could have asked others, but those were the ones I felt comfortable with. And yes. I think we are all guided. The ego that says it's me doing this alone, it's ridiculous.
Oh, no, that's ridiculous. Yes, we all have our spirit guides with us.
We do. And I think when we practice, there's the angel of homeopathy comes into the room and blesses us with insight to ask the right question. I love homeopathy. I love it. I've been passionate about it for 35 years. And now I just don't feel that I want to practice. I don't know. I'm moving into art. I'm moving into art and different level of writing, but it has been with me for a long time. And I am so
in homeopathy, it's very much the singer and the song.
The singer and the song. I do like that. It's been a song I love singing.
Yes.
And I'm going to Bali to meet the youngins who have got this new conference called Homeopathy Unhinged is the name of their conference. And it's going to be my swan song to just say thank you and keep up the good work. I do teach a class called the Illumination Remedy class, where my students who are homeopaths are making spiritual remedies, and some of them are extraordinary, which I would love to share with you at some time, but not, I don't want to take time away from you. So let's talk about aging, shall we? Let's talk about the fact that can I say your age? Or let you say it?
My goodness, I was born in 1940, 2nd of August, a Leo, and therefore my birthday's coming up within a week or two.
Yes, happy birthday.
85.
I'm married to a Leo, and I must say, you're enchanting people. You're enchanting people. I'm going to be.
I think one of the most important aspects of homeopathic philosophy is the concept of the miasmatic diseases.
I agree.
Yes, and I'm sad that modern teachers have taken this miasmatic, the classic miasms, and brought in extra or very different facets to it. I regret that very much because I think even the um, nomenclature and the science behind the homeopathic understanding of miasms is diluted by this and impaired by it.
I
But
agree.
the continuum of disease, the concept of a continuum of disease, that I, for instance, am like a vessel of water that is taken from the ever-flowing river of life. At a particular point, 2nd of August 1940, my parents dipped into that river and I came out of it. But the water which that pail contains is contaminated by pollution, emotional jealousies, angers, hatreds, goodness knows what from the past. And as we
Yes.
know, sora,
Yes.
syphilis, tuberculosis, and carcinosis. It's
Yes.
all there.
It's all there. And
All
doesn't
there.
it transform people
Yes.
when you clear that field? Right at the end of my training, I was handed a handout by one of my teachers on the miasms, that there was a practitioner in Switzerland whose name I don't know. He was a medical doctor, and his whole practice was treating the miasms in relation to the seasons of the year. So he would start with the fall with tuberculinum, he would go into serinum during the winter, he would go into meterinum during the spring, and syphilinum during the summer, the hot time. And that's all he did. He didn't do any classical treatment. He didn't do constitutional treatment. His whole practice was miasm. And I looked at that. I thought it was the most valuable thing I got out of all of years.
Absolutely. You know, you've done a lot of work with the chakras. And if
Yes,
you think of the first chakra, the root chakra is Sora.
it's
The
so Sora. It's
sacral
so
chakra
Sora.
is psychosis. The solar
Absolutely.
plexus chakra is
It's
syphilis. The
linum.
air chakra, the love chakra is tuberculosis.
Yes, and the throat.
Carcinoma, the big thing is control and repression. I have no voice. I have no voice. The fifth chakra,
Absolutely.
which is
I
carcinosis.
I love the chakras and the miasms, and I have written about it, and I'm going to probably rewrite the book because it's so, the chakras are great. It's a ladder. I call it the ladder of love. And it doesn't change. Your understanding expands, but it's 18,000 years old. Why would I fiddle with it?
And it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum, and so much can be taught in relationship to the chakras. That's
the beauty of bringing them together, studying them together in that way.
But
If
I'm
I had
not
more time, I'd be able to write and write and write and write and write. We'll do
right.
as much as
Me
we
too.
can anyway.
You know,
But coming back to the question of old age,
let's
if you
talk about age.
if you treat the child, you're actually treating the cancer that that child could possibly develop when they're 50, 60, or 70 years of age.
That's right.
Since it's a chain reaction, it's a continuum within the race, within the species, but it's also a continuum within the person, the individual.
I
So
said to my
they're
clients,
born already with their eventual chronic disease that will cost them their lives, possibly. So by treating the child with pulsatilla and chamomilla, particularly thinking of the two infantile types,
yeah,
the aggressive type, the alpha type, and the beta type, which is pulsatilla, you're already beginning that process of curing, which is removing those diseases that might ultimate at the end of their lives. So it's part of stopping the aging process. But there's so much more to it than that. It's so multifactorial. The events, the circumstances, the situations, the life habits, the diet,
the belief system.
exercise, all of those things must be taken into account as well.
You look like a man of 60. You talk like a man of between 50 and 60. I'm really stunned to know you're
Well, Every day I ride 40 kilometers
On a bicycle?
on a bicycle.
40 kilometers every day?
Every day.
Good on you.
Yeah,
Good on you.
3 days, then I rest. 3 days and then I rest. So since I turned 80, I've ridden 41,000 kilometers since I turned 80. So
That's brilliant.
it's not just homeopathy, but it
No,
is
no,
also,
it's not.
yeah, I'm happily married. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got a wonderful family.
Yeah.
There are so many factors, even outside of homeopathy, that have assisted. But I was always treated homeopathically. I've had one, and this was recent, very, very recent, because I had to have a cataract operation and I had a slight infection in one eye, and the timing was vitally important. I needed to have that. That was the only antibiotic I've ever had, where we
In your
had days.
whole life? In your
My
whole
whole life,
life?
my whole life.
Well, you're a testament to what good clinical practice is all about. You're a testament to
Or
resiliency.
I'm maybe genetically advantaged.
I don't think it's just genetics. I think it's your spirit is
It,
vast, your
it's
light
all
is
things,
big.
isn't it? It
Well,
is.
if you keep your light under a bushel, as they say in the good book, it's never going to shine. And you have chosen to shine, and you have the backing of this extraordinary spiritual legacy from your father and your grandmother and Dr. Latari. It has to come out.
I
It
think it would
has.
be important to say here, because as you hinted at it earlier, that any one of our colleagues who is out there practicing homeopathy with love and sincerity, and who is working on themselves at the same time to become themselves a better person and a better
Absolutely.
physician, is surrounded by those who are helping. They
Oh,
are there. So my situation is only more conspicuous because it's being given content which I can share.
and thank
Um,
goodness you're sharing
yes.
it. It's
With
hugely.
all of us, there are those unseen persons who are involved in the practice. Just as Mozart was surrounded by musicians, without a doubt, any homeopath who is sincere and ardent in their work has those helpers who they require.
The
You don't
Native
even have to
American,
ask really for those who have recently deceased. There are many, many wonderful physicians,
yes, there
able
are,
and willing
and
and
willing.
appointed
Yes.
for that task.
The Native Americans have this wonderful expression, Matakwe Iyasan. We stand on the shoulders of those before us.
That's
And
right.
that's one of their primary beliefs. And it's true in homeopathy. We stand on the shoulders. I love that you knew Margie Blackie and Fubaster and 20 men. I mean, God, they were just so important in my education.
Right.
And I never thought of them quite as people as much as books, I have to say, because that's all I had. But
As I say, you're
also
standing on the shoulders of giants. Um,
giants.
yes, really giants. And here again, possibly the plethora of new remedies is also a concern for me. I know a lot of people rejoice in this and feel that with the AI help that we have in computers, that we can access them. But to me, a lot of them dilute the materia medica, they dilute the repertory, and more choices, more difficulties in making that choice. The
Well,
Herring and Hahnemann and Clark and Kent and Tyler and Farrington and Nash all did incredible work. My father lacked many of the modern remedies. So there are those that stand out as being absolutely essential, but more and more and more remedies to me is not the answer.
I agree. I have to say it took me a long time to get to the meditative proving remedies. And also Franz Vermeulen's books, Monera and Fungi. They were huge influences on me. Monera changed because I wasn't trained as a doctor and I
No.
didn't know about, the
Yes. No, there are certain ones you can pick out, in fact.
yes,
We needed eagle, we need scorpion, we need germanium. That's Jeremy Scher's work
yeah,
that he's done. They are chosen. They're
they're
really specific
chosen.
and so important. Yes.
One of the things that I
My love,
got,
I will have to leave you now. I'm afraid I'm
oh,
running out of
David,
time.
let's do this again. I think we could I think we've got 2 or 3 more podcasts going before I turn it off.
It's, here it is now, of course, 6 o'clock or 15 minutes past 6. So Paddy will have supper ready.
Give my best to her. But I want to say thank you so much, David, for your time, for your genius, for your sharing.
I'd like to thank our guests today who've shared their experience, who have enhanced my life by developing skill sets and a vision of the world that is really expanded and I think beautiful. So thank you until the next podcast of Unscheduled Flights. Again, I'm your host, Ambika Wauters, wishing you all the best.